This should pop up. There we are. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to another episode of, well, actually, our first episode, technically, of Fans of the Boys. But with our regular guesting of fans here with us, as always, we got here playing the Flash himself, Mr. Don Willie. Say hello to everyone there, Don.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Glad to be here for Fans of the Boys, and oh man, I think this is going to be special.
Wonderful. Oh, yeah. We're going to have a good time. And of course, on the far end right there, we have the smirking gun reviewer himself, Mr. Rob Stone.
What is going on, everybody? Can't wait to dive into another crazy season of this show. Lots to talk about, and yeah, it should be a blast.
Excellent. All right. So, and I just want to sort of give everyone a brief little heads up from a technical standpoint. Right now, where I live, there are some fires going on in the mountains right behind me. And unfortunately, our internet link happens to run right through those fires. So I've got a few backups here on connection, but just in case we've got any sound issues, there's any connectivity, hopefully it's just a passing little bit, but unfortunately, I cannot control nature. Otherwise, I would be on the 7, which would be cool and also suck, as we're going to get into a little bit more here. So now, if any of you have had the chance to watch Rob's review, he does have a full review out on his page, but he's going to sort of build on that here with us. So we're going to start things off here, I think, with just a brief little feedback, little take on our Boys Season 2 episode, which this year they did a nice thing, I think, by dropping 3 episodes first and then giving us individual episodes. For me, it sort of gave a movie feel to this opener and let us sort of catch up and still have something to snack on over the next few weeks. But Don, give everyone a thought on what you thought of our Season 2 opener.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. I was a little taken aback that they didn't pick up right where they left off at the end of season 1. A little shocked by that, but overall, the opening with the juxtaposition of Black Noir and Giancarlo Esposito's character, who's the CEO of Vought, and kind of like going over logistics of what's going to happen when these guys get put into the military and then trying to work out the military contract, and who do the superheroes answer to, what's the casualty rate, which I was like, that was kind of crazy. This guy basically just going around assassinating people and then holding up the little bunny. I'll be honest with you, I was scared for the kid. I thought he was going to kill the kid, and then he walks out. I'm like, oh, okay. They decided to tone it down a bit, because I'm pretty sure if it was the comic book, he probably would have killed him.
Still a terrifying, creepy moment there, yes, with the playing of the bunny, and yeah,
very, very. Yeah, and then the funeral for Translucent. Oh my god. Absolute hilarity. They got an open casket for someone who's supposed, like there's nothing in there. Not everyone, but enough people know that there's nothing in there. And like the way that it was so produced, like it was literally a Hollywood production for a funeral. I mean, especially when Starlight comes out and she's singing, I was just like, oh god, this is like, you can't get any more cheesy than this. And it's only because I've seen things like this before, and I'm like, okay, I get what they're trying to do, and I love the fact that they're kind of taking pot shots at these kind of overproduced spectacles that are supposed to be memorials to people. Where it's like, oh, we got this entertainer, and we have to have this rousing speech and such and such. And sometimes it comes off as very inauthentic.
Well, I think that was the great thing. It was the fake on top of the fake. It's a fake funeral with a fake body, and they're doing fake, yeah. And nobody really feels anything of what they're talking about. So,
yeah, so that was, crazy. And the introduction of someone who's actually more insufferable than Homelander. Like Homelander is a dick of epic proportions, and then in comes Stormfront. It's like, how in the world do you get worse than Homelander? It's like, oh no, this is Homelander with a social media focus.
right.
Well,
yeah, and I definitely want to get into Stormfront for a little bit later on too, because there's a lot going on with that character.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna be playing with.
Let's see. Maeve is. It seems like Maeve might be the only one who's kind of well adjusted to the whole situation. Like she's trying to get out of it. She's dealing with her ex having her medical issues and all that. But out of the entire crew of the 7, it seems like she might be the only one with her head on straight. I mean, obviously we're all rooting for Starlight because Starlight is someone who came into this kind of pure and and is very unpretentious about all of it. But definitely Maeve is the one who's just kind of like, look, I'm just here for the paycheck. All right, I'm not doing anything extra. I'm not trying to be. She's not trying to be over the top about anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
Whereas everyone else, it seems like they're playing the character or on top of playing a character. And then there's Father Homelander, who
oh yeah, the creepiest dad figure you could ever possibly have.
Oh my god, but there's a lot more to that story that we still have to see. Now, mind you, I'm still only on episode 1. There's so much more to the Homelander story that we have to see, because obviously he didn't rape Billy Butcher's wife.
There's definitely something else going on there.
This was an agreement that they came to, and now Homelander is kind of like, now that he's thinking back on who he is and how he became the way he did, he's like, well, you know what? No, that's wrong. I was deprived of a childhood. I was deprived of having parental figures, having, like for him, he I guess he kind of almost feels like he's living like a hypocrite to a certain extent.
Right.
Because everyone outside of the vault sphere believes that he lived this particular kind of childhood that he never did. And he's like, well, you know what? No, I want to give my son the childhood that I was supposed to have. And then maybe, because he knows he's not a good guy. And I think he's trying to find a way to become a better person. But he doesn't know how.
Right. Well, I think that's kind of an interesting take, and definitely something we'll be following Homelander with. Well, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, we got a lot of real big specifics to go in, but maybe transitioning into all those. I definitely got to say that as creepy as he is, and definitely probably because of that, Anthony Starr is owning everything this season.
Yes.
Every moment is creepy. When he pulls the milk out of the baby milk out of the fridge and heats it up and takes the drink. He starts this thing with his tongue of like the tasting of it, which I mean, one is just super nasty, but he continues it on. Every time he grabs milk now, it's like this flashback, and he'll start and he'll have this like little snaky tongue thing that comes out. I mean, he really is doing such an incredible job of making us so uncomfortable with every bit of presence. It's I mean, I hate it, but I love it. I mean, I can really see the work that he's putting in on this, and it pays off so much.
Yeah, it was like last season was last season was definitely owned by Carl Urban. This season, definitely owned by Anthony Starr.
Yeah,
owned. Like, I mean, because it's the little things that he does that, that you're like, man, I am scared of this character coming through the TV and even wanting to sit down on the couch next to me and put his arms around. Like, hey, let's just watch this here. Like, I would be afraid if Homelander showed up at my door and was like, "Hey, I got a new movie that we just did. You're going to be the test audience. Let's watch." I'm sorry. I'd be sitting there the whole time like, "Oh my god, he can hear my heartbeat. He knows my blood pressure. I think I'm about to die."
yeah. He's a terrifying element. All right, and like I said, I do want to get into some specifics, but just from real quick standpoint, how do you feel about this season so far, and especially the dropping of the first 3 episodes off the beginning? Rob, let's start this with you, and then Don, and then I'll follow up right there. So, what's your quick over and under on this season? You like it? Does it work for you? Is there some issues? And again, that the 3-issue drop. No, 3-episode drop. Did you like that? Do you want them all spaced out? Do you prefer the whole season drop?
It's nice that we know that the next episodes are going to be weekly. I honestly would have preferred them all to be weekly instead of dropping 3 on me. It's a matter of like how busy my schedule is and trying to fit everything in. I liked what I saw. I enjoyed what there was so much there. There was so much in those first 3 episodes that we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
And hours if we wanted to. But I'm glad that they're getting around to just doing it weekly. And yeah, I think they drop it like this to keep you interested and really wanting to dive in and see what's next. I think it would have worked either way, but and they're not the first ones to do it. I Raised by Wolves did the exact same thing, and I think that'll maybe be a pattern for other channels to do. I think, or other streaming services to do, but one at a time is what I really prefer. But I'll take what I can get. But bingeable, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. So,
yeah. Yeah, I have to agree. It's too hard to talk to people about it. People are all over the map unless, because there's always that one person that stays up for 8 hours for midnight and binges the whole thing. And you're like, great, I can't talk to you about anything. Yeah. Yeah, Don, you're that guy. Okay,
I definitely
tell us what you think.
Yeah, I definitely would have been that guy if they would have dropped all 8 episodes of The Boys. I would have been that guy. Friday night, and Thursday night going into Friday morning, and Friday morning on my way to work with my eyes the same color as my shirt and hat right now. Mm-hmm. All right. The thing about it is, I think that it was a good idea for them to drop these 3 episodes though, rather than 1, because it gives you enough of the story that you kind of know where it's going, and then it also it leaves you wanting so much more because of the kind of not necessarily cliffhanger, but just where it was left off.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I've got to agree. Yeah, I am definitely done with the whole binging of things. It's too tough. There's always a certain amount of pressure, and also if you ever want to review a show, it feels like you have to sort of crush everything, and then there's always stuff to miss. So I always prefer spacing things out. Um, and I have to say, I actually did like this 3 episode drop because for me, it was in a way of missing it for so long. It was like a movie, and it definitely had a couple of contained arcs within it, and some pluses and minuses uh, that I thought really worked. And in fact, I was glad to get done and out of the way because while I loved how much of like Anthony Starr's work as Homelander, some certain dynamics bothered me. The whole Huey Billy headbutting mushroom stamping competition was kind of a pain in the ass. I loved how they wrapped it up at the end of that 3rd episode and kind of got back together and like, good, that's done, it's out of the way. Um, so in a way, I would have hated to have been feeling that drawn out over the week. Plus, we get the whole arc set up with Kamiko and her brother. We get Stormfront introducing herself, and then at the climax, doing that reveal of who she really is. It was to me kind of a fun way of like, yeah, jumping back in, getting the energy and the feel of it all, and still going, I have 5 weeks left of little munchies that I can have of this world. Um, so I thought that was really I like the fact that they make that choice. I like the show really overall. Like I said, there are a few tiny little points that I have, um, but they are minor in compared to what the show is giving us. Just want to do a quick little hello to uh, Big E and Rena Dietrich in our chat. Hello, thank you for joining us live. Yes, we're definitely going to be getting onto the deep and his little journey with the Church of the Collective, which was definitely very trippy. Um, but yeah, so I think overall we're feeling good about this season. We like where the show is going. We've got a great cast. We've got some great characters. Um, but yeah, so let's take a look at what we have going off. We were talking a little bit about Daddy Homelander, and yeah, how terrifying for Becca to have her child at the whim of this petulant god creature who just is so convinced of his own point of view. No problem, just pushing the kid right off a roof. That's I understand some dads are like the hard lessons are what's important. I think the craziest part was his sort of look afterwards too, if not of concern or anything, but like, all right, well, I'm gonna get yelled at for this or interrupting my day. Um, but yeah, Rob, what's your take on Daddy Homelander there?
Well, I'm just like at first right now we've got the kid, you know, pushing away,
Right.
and I'm just worried that he's gonna eventually get to the kid. Like the kid's gonna start warming up to him. Um, I love how he saw how he was being with his mother and jumped in there and was like, I'm not like you. I want to see that. I want to see somebody who's so, that will stand up to him. I mean, he's a little kid, but I every single like you said, we keep talking about Anthony Starr is so good. I don't know if we've ever had a character that has filled me with this much dread in every single scene he's in. Every single scene. And it doesn't matter. Like even in season 1, when they were just doing the mockumentary, I felt like he would just kill everybody in the room if he felt like it. And I'm more worried about Becca than I am the kid, because we know that she made a deal with Homelander to keep Billy safe. We don't know how much, is going on with the whole beginning of this whole thing of like her having a kid with this guy. And clearly getting reports about everything. He knew word for word what she said. Unless he just was using super hearing or something. It was like just monitoring that way. But as far as Daddy Homelander goes, I mean, he's just as bad at this as he is at everything else. And I mean, it makes me. I don't have a traditional father figure. I haven't had one. If my choice was no dad or him, I'm fine with where I'm at.
Yeah. I think that's a healthier choice. Much less counseling that you would have to do afterwards. Um, and also the conviction of his own superiority. I think is another one of those things that are just like you are better than everyone else on the planet. Like it's a hard thing. It's so rough being alone, being such an impenetrable god. um, yeah, it really is, and I think we are looking to have. I think you're right with a twist because they even start to see it where the kid's disgusted by Highlander or Homelander, and then Homelander wants him to go out. And he's like, "Yeah, Mom, can I?" And yeah, he gets hurt, but then he sees his power. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a really evil tug of war going on between where this kid's going to end up.
Brightburn 2.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and of course, Biggie's mentioning up the blind hero that Homelander destroyed his eardrums. The first intro into into the Seven there. yeah,
I think he
really.
might have done a little more than destroy his eardrums. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the dude had like a fractured skull and possible permanent brain damage after that. Oh man, can we talk about how he just terrorized the shit out of Ashley
Oh yes, please.
for
Oh
these
please
entire three
do. Oh,
episodes?
Ashley was now so unprepared.
You know, last year she was kind of Starlight's handler and trying to get Starlight kind of acclimated into like the fast paced. You're in New York now. You're part of the Seven. This is the big leagues. This isn't that the shit you were doing back in Iowa or whatever. No, this is you know. So she's thinking she can handle Homelander the same way, and Homelander's just like, no. Understand? I run all of this. Okay, I am your God. You will kneel before me. You will do what I say, or you will die. And that's the thing about it is like she's thinking, oh no, this is gonna be a fun job. She has absolutely no idea, the shit that Homelander and oh damn, what was Elizabeth Shue's character name again?
Stormfront.
Uh,
Oh,
Madeline.
Madeline Stillwell. Yeah.
Stillwell, yes. Yeah. She has absolutely no idea about what their dynamic was and that he, melted her face. So yeah, she's has absolutely no idea what kind of levels of just absolute evil this man uh you know can allow himself to go to because she's also used to seeing the same Homelander that most of the public sees.
Right.
So for her now, it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm getting to work with Homelander. Homelander's a fun guy. Oh, but uh, um, I'm sorry. I didn't. Please don't kill me. Listen. I'm just here trying to collect a check. Please don't kill me. uh,
And it's such a beautiful and immediate turn, and she plays it so well because every time Ashley even hints that she has to do an interaction, you feel all of that tension and pressure, and kind of like she's like, I thought I was going to have the best job ever, and now it's the most terrifying possible place could be.
and the thing about it is, she might be scared to quit.
Oh yeah,
It's one of those things like, oh no, you can't quit. You know too much. You know,
Um,
so
and, and well,
I
and
have
if you
no
were
sympathy for this character at all. Not one iota of sympathy. You make a deal with the devil, well, this is what you get. And the way she treats other people as well, way she talks down to them. She's been doing it since season 1, yelling, berating them, treating them like children. And she got the big job, and she has to wear her big girl pants, and she's gonna get what she gets. And yeah, she probably doesn't even know what happened to Elizabeth Shue. Uh, I just want a really funny death because
okay,
I have like I just she's that corporate lackey who just the yes person and just is going to keep going, and maybe she is fearful for her life, but tough, good. I hope she does. I hope she goes home and cries every single night. And wishes that she'd made a different choice in her life.
uh,
She plays it brilliantly. She plays
yeah.
this kind of character great. She was the same kind of manic character on Jessica Jones as well, and she always brings that kind of energy um, to it. But so it's not the actress's fault, but the character can take a flying leap. Hopefully, somebody makes her take a flying leap.
oh god. See, now I'm imagining Homelander just tossing her off the side of a building or a bridge. Just
Yeah,
oh,
that's exactly going to be just a side-handed toss out the window, and she just flies. Well, but that brings up I think, an interesting point about kind of people getting their kind of karmic payback, the one-upsmanship. And I think that's something the show is doing very well, is kind of continuing to expand. You have the person that treated people badly, and now they've got the big dream job, and now they realize they're in the worst possible place that they can be. We have the Deep, who's got his own sort of redemption arc going on. And we've got, of course, Homelander thinking that he's the one on top, and spends several episodes proclaiming to everyone how much that he is the person on top, until he encounters one plain little human, played, of course, by Giancarlo Esposito. I'm talking about our CEO of VOT, Mr. Stan Edgar, who doesn't take crap from anyone. And the scene with him and Homelander, I was really curious where that was going to go. But you don't cast this man unless you want somebody who can stare down anyone. And I loved the fact that our plain, regular human being just snaps Homelander right into his place. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah, some
Vought
definite
looks
Gus
like it's
Fring
gonna.
vibes
oh.
here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, the question is he just a regular old human being? Because, I think about the fact that he was staring Homelander down, and then he brings up, the original founder of the Vault Company, and, how he did all these medical experiments, back during World War II. And I'm just like, it can't just be that he's just the CEO. He
Ah.
obviously knew about Compound V, and he's probably been with the company forever. If he's the CEO of Vault, he's probably been with the company for longer than Homelander's even been alive.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine that he probably has some sort of trick up his sleeve where if he doesn't actually have powers, then he probably has a way to shut off uh, the superhuman's powers.
Yeah, I was wondering that same thing of like you can't just have this guy be nothing and just be a big talker in the end. Um there has to be some kind of leverage, and I was wondering this all the way back in season 1 that
Mm-hmm.
maybe that they didn't ever tell Madeline about, that some sort of fail safe. Like if you're going to create a Superman, you have to have some sort of failsafe in place. And maybe that's what the guys on 82 do. Maybe there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know that we're going to find out right at the right, like, hopefully real sweet choice moment.
It is because, he does very much point out the fact that Vought is a pharmaceutical company, not a superhero company. Obviously implying with the compound V, which, we were introduced last season and plays a huge role in these first opening episodes, really kind of changing the face of the world. And driving sort of a lot of stuff. But he does, I hadn't quite thought about both either him as a hero himself or a powered individual. Though, what if his backstory? What if he was one of the early guys in the lab and one of the breakthrough ones? And that was sort of, maybe he's invulnerable. Maybe he has suggestion. Maybe he knows what people are thinking. It would be really interesting to kind of give that breadth to his character. Though on the other hand, the fact that he's just a human that can comfortably stare down, I don't know, there's also something to that too, which is why I like your idea that if he had some sort of chemical power away switch to unpower, or knowing Homelander's weakness. Because remember, I think they said last season that he doesn't have one. They threw everything they possibly could at him and nothing went through. If he knew what his actual Homelander's weakness was.
Hey, I gotta step away just for a second. Somebody's trying to get my attention off screen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Well, you know what? He can't see through zinc.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe that could be. Excuse me. Maybe that could be some part of his weakness. Maybe zinc is a weakness as well.
Right.
Like it has to be like maybe put into his bloodstream or something like that.
A zinc bullet would, stop him or some crazy thing like that. Sorry, don't want to demonetize us. Damn it.
Mm.
Okay, Biggie in the chat. Well, A-Train dies this time of another heart attack. Thanks for the transition there, Biggie. I wanted to head right into obviously A-Train and Annie, because we do have a little bit of development of their story. Obviously, at the end of last season, A-Train has a heart attack. Huey tries to save him. Annie sends him off. She keeps him alive until, I'm assuming, the paramedics show up. So they get a real interesting dynamic here, and I love how they sort of. I know A-Train heals quickly, but it was one of those things that kind of caught me of like they set up a dynamic of he's in bed and she's visiting. Then all of a sudden he's better and alive and is right there at a press conference with Annie, who of course has to be thinking immediately, what do you remember? And that sort of sets up some interesting little back and forth that we have with Annie and A-Train here. So Don, why don't you, since you've got your A-Train representative, Mr. Flash, start us out. How are you feeling about A-Train's move, and do you think he's maybe going to get over some of his stuff, or is this heart issues really just keeping him in check for the moment?
Well, the heart issues are keeping him in check, but also, A-Train isn't necessarily a bad guy. He's just someone who, unfortunately, he's one of these guys that was given a position. He'll do anything to keep it. And he's gotten used to being around people who aren't necessarily good people, and he's kind of conformed to that lifestyle. But when you look at, the interactions between him and Starlight now, you kind of realize it's like, okay, he's not the thing that he's pretending to be. he when he has that talk with Starlight, and he's like, you don't fuck up the money,
Oh
and
yes.
Starlight is like, oh nah, but there are more important things. And he's like, yeah, only someone who grew up with money would think that. So that already gives you a little insight to his backstory. He's someone who grew up without money, and then because of the fact that he was fast, and whenever the compound V either kicked in or they gave him the compound V, and that made him fast, and he gained notoriety. That was the thing that changed his life.
Hmm.
And so now he's his whole fight is to never go back there again. And he's realized that he's had to do horrible things, and I think that his mechanism of coping is all of the hanging out and doing all of the theatrics. And you see, during the quieter moments, he for him it's just like, look, okay, I just don't want to go back to where I was. And if you're the person who's going to jeopardize it, then I got to do what I got to do. But he realizes that he's in the world of really fucked up people that he'd rather not be associated with. So
Yeah.
he's kind of in a catch-22 to a certain extent. But at the same point, just like Rob stated earlier, he made a deal with the devil, so you can't necessarily feel sorry for him. Look, like when he had the race against Shockwave, right?
Right.
He was so scared that he was going to lose that he shot up with Compound V, even though he knew he was already having issues because of him shooting up the Compound V.
Yeah.
He was already having problems before that race, and then shooting up and then going and running around made things even worse. So yeah, it's just one of those things where um,
Well, it gives him a chance for redemption. You're seeing a backstory which is sympathetic and understanding. He's not this black and white, just evil figure. And I think that's one thing the show does really well, is showing those depths, the causes of why people would make these choices. And by the way, the line that has stuck out with me the most is A Train's right there. Only someone with money, who comes from money, says that, or thinks that. Um, it's extremely poignant, and yeah, I think it's a perfect encapsulation of where his character is coming from. Rob, what about yourself? What are you thinking about the A Train and Annie dynamic, and how we're kind of forging new direction between the two of them?
Well, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I do like what he said there to her, but it's also coming from, and I also understand why he might think that she comes from money. We know that she doesn't,
Right.
but I can understand why he would think that, because he's seeing her as kind of like the stick up her butt, like trying to get in the way of the money, trying to stop him. And so it seems kind of blasé to her about being able to stand on a pedestal and or a soapbox and be like, we got to do better than that, but at the same time, I mean, he may be on a redemptive arc. But I just I keep a tally of all the wrongs, and the lack of sympathy that he has for people, and the ego. He's very much like, he got a lot all at once, and he didn't know how to handle it. He got in over his head, had to start taking V to feel like he was always going to be the best, always stick there. And then he's got Homelander to worry about, because he's had a couple of talks with him that always feel like, anybody that has a private meeting with him feels like they're not walking out of that room.
Oh yeah.
And so again, yeah, he's going to do, like you said, Don, he's going to do whatever it takes to keep his position, but not just that, he's got to keep his life. And yeah, he definitely copes by going to the clubs and things like that still. I'm hoping that he's a character that will, again, all these characters deserve to die, in my opinion. And the only redemption is actually saving the world from Homelander. That's how I see it. That they want to be the seven, they need to come together as the seven to stop what's really wrong and give up their own lives. Mm-hmm. It's also messed up. Like they talk, like, did he ever discuss how he felt about being, when they find out that Compound V made them? Have we even heard his side of that?
No, I don't think
everybody else, like the Deep, had a major thing kind of during his therapy that he's having, where he's like, I could have been normal. It didn't have to be this way. I don't think A-Train's had that conversation yet. I think, but I want to feel a little bit different about him, but then I just think like how unapologetic he was about Robin's death. And having to apologize to Huey face to face was such a chore. He didn't even want to give this guy a few seconds of his time. And he didn't feel bad. He really didn't feel like he felt bad. She was just another nobody that was in his way. And they laughed about it in the bar. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Well, they're definitely, if they want to give him a redemption arc, it's certainly a more difficult one because, I think, obviously how you feel about things, what your remorse level is kind of how we often determine whether somebody is worthy of redemption or forgiveness or not. Does it even bother you? And sure, A-Train is so focused on being on the high and on top of the world, he doesn't even remember that he met this guy like twice and still has to have it be pointed out to him before it can come up in his mind. Though they are trying to promise and push a little bit more of a redemptive arc, and certainly one that I think plays much better with the Deep, who started last season to get a little bit of being on the other side. He starts off obviously exposing himself and kind of sexually harassing Starlight, or not kind of, does. And then by the end, he's laid back with some girl shoving her fingers in his gills to get herself off, being completely violated himself. So, I mean, I think they started a nice arc for the character last. Here, they kind of dive in a little bit more with, but I guess ends up being the Church of the Collective, brought up by Eagle, and kind of our in-world Scientology religion going on right here. All I gotta know is, anybody want a fresca?
Right. What's in those frescoes?
If it's going to renew my light, then
Fresca's getting a lot of free advertisement, but yeah, that was my question. Is like, what is in the Fresca? Is there something? I don't know if there is, or that's just their byline. But yeah, the Deep's got kind of an interesting little arc going on this season. Obviously, he feels very much like he was taken advantage of with the Compound V, that he was given a life that he's basically been made fun of. Even after he goes through his whole kind of personal acceptance, his first encounter with Homelander is to cover your gills. They're showing, and that's disgusting. It's making me feel for the Deep, and I would not have thought about this, after episode 1 of season 1. So what are you guys thinking about the Deep? Don, why don't you start us off?
I mean, well, you know what? The Deep is somebody who, again, this is somebody who put in a position that he didn't necessarily earn. He's, with the biggest players, in the game, and he's been afforded privileges that no mere mortal will ever have, and he's taken advantage of it. What he did to Starlight, obviously, 100% reprehensible, because not only did he take advantage of her being naive to the situation. He also made it seem like a threat. Like, hey, if you don't do this,
Oh yeah.
you're going, you're gonna, you're not gonna get to attain your dream. And hey, also if you don't do this, I'll say that you attacked me. So I mean, like, yeah, super douchebag move. But then to find out that basically he's a very tortured soul as well, though. He hears all these marine life animals from all over, and anytime he gets close, he hears their inner thoughts. And yeah, like we think about Aquaman, and Aquaman talks to fish and all that stuff. But like when he says that he was 9 years old and he heard goldfish begging for their lives, I'm
That
like,
would drive you
whoa,
insane.
yeah.
My God.
Now the other question I have now is like, okay, so we saw in season one them giving babies compound V.
Yeah.
Now the question is, was he given compound V as a child, like as a baby, the same way, and then like it just later on manifested, or was it the thing that happened to him, like where his parents took him in and let them experiment on him when he was like around 9 years old, and that's where the gills came in, because that's also a very weird thing too, with the whole him having gills on his torso. So I'm like, was that something that he had when he was younger and he didn't know what it was, and it wasn't until later that it kind of not manifested itself, but it that it
Well, yeah. I mean, they
that it was
they
more
do have like mutants in Marvel. It's always around puberty where their mutant power tends to come out. So it's possible, even though we did see the baby with the laser eyes last season, that some of these powers may not manifest until they're a little bit older. They don't see him initially. We even have Homelander's kid, obviously, hasn't recognized that he has powers yet. And in fact, there's the whole thing about, we decided not to tell him and to try and so he can be raised normal. So yeah, don't know. They haven't really talked about the manifestation of these. If this is something that happens in womb and you're just out and boom, you're born superhero, or and maybe some powers do, and maybe some other powers start to do it. Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if they're gonna. I hope that's something they kind of explore, because that does over time that would kind of change the thing if they started out with early experiments and then realized doing it young, no, doing it when they're a baby, no, doing it when they're in vitro. What stage did they decide that?
right. And then also, there's the whole thing that the only parent that we've actually met so far is Starlight's mom. So that's
Yeah.
she's the only one that we've actually met at this point. We
Mm-hmm.
saw Maeve's father, but we didn't meet him. So like,
Right.
we still don't know. We still don't know the like the stories of the other parents, and like what led them to make these deals to give their kids powers.
Sure. Sure. There was, yeah. I know that there was some money and stuff that was involved with Starlight's parents, but yeah, obviously as a younger person, it might have been differently with an older group of soups. Um, what about yourself there, Rob? What are you thinking of our? It's like, I don't like any of these people. Screw all the soups. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to speak for you there, Rob. You can say that.
I mean, you're pretty much right. I mean, Patton Oswalt is everywhere. Can we just say that
Oh
he's in
yes.
everything? Now he's the voice of the gills on a mushroom trip.
Just
But
want to be
you bring up a really
accepted.
interesting point about those gills, because I would, what if they were if they wanted to design somebody who had his abilities but still put him out in front of people, they'd probably go, well, do we really want him to have gills that people can see? Like, wouldn't people be grossed out? We want them to look like CW actors.
Yeah.
Let's hide the gills. Look at Homelander, just takes one look at him and ugh, and the fact that, people do say, like, he does feel like he has to hide them when that girl sees them. They know, people know he has them. People don't see it, and they've got that weird way about it. The thing about him, and yeah, you're like, same as you said, I don't sympathize, but I do see where they're going with him, that he's actually tried. He keeps failing. He keeps screwing up, or mistaking his importance, or trying to do things that he think will lead to something that don't.
Oh yeah, desperately wants to be the hero and has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, like with like Biggie was saying, the dolphin deserves better. Like he wanted to save the dolphin. He wanted to save that lobster. He wanted to use all his fish friends to stop, the boys. And every single time it backfires on him. So, I mean, he is trying, but he's still not self-aware enough to really see, like, he does all the internal crying and all the things. Oh, poor me and poor me. And he kind of maybe felt a little something when that girl, took advantage of him. But until he's really able, like hitting rock bottom, like that church is telling him, he's got to really feel the bottom. And as for, coming from someone who had to hit his own bottom, he will not be able to rise up until he hits that bottom and recognize it and see for a fact all the damage he's done, and be able to say, I can't change what I did, but I can stop being part of the problem. And hopefully he'll get like some big hero death. Again, I still say they all deserve to die.
Okay.
But
that's a fair opinion.
Every single one of them. But I want to see him, at least if he gets to that aha moment where he can really say to Starlight, like, God, I am the worst, but I can't change any of that, but I can maybe try to do something on my way out the door. I would love to see him do something that affects the end of this in a great way, even though I still want it to be, at his own demise.
Okay.
Also, there's two Breaking Bad people now in this. The person that's from the church was Walter White's old girlfriend. Hey, that's man, running that, or the representative of that church. I really want to know what's going on with that. That is probably one of the storylines that I really want to know where they're going with that church of the whatever it was called.
The Church of the Collective, yeah.
The Collective. Because I think, like, with the whole thing about, do you want a fresca? Do you want a fresca? Do you want a fresca? I'm thinking maybe mind control. I'm thinking maybe there's whoever's behind that is a super villain, an actual villain behind other things to kind of undermine what Vought's doing, try to get some of their heroes onto whatever little group they have, like Scientology has, like pull some of those people away from Vought. Maybe they've got kind of a MODOK type character or something that nobody awesome. Even, like that could be like a counterpoint to Vought, like have just another supervillain group out there. Because I want to know more about the Eagle, the Archer, and he seems like an all right guy. He's talking like Hawkeye, talking about, I'm just a guy with bows and arrows, man. Like, none of this, I'm going to run out of arrows. Like, he doesn't sound like he's been compromised yet. There's probably some heroes out there that we've never been introduced to that haven't been this compromised as the main seven are.
Sure.
So, I want to know more about some of these people. They even hint to somebody, I think it was Mallory brought up a character called Liberty.
Yeah.
And so I really want to know about that. But like, yeah, it's not to get too sidetracked because I know how that gets when I go down one of these rabbit holes. But the deep, I I do want to see him redeemed. And it is a really interesting character to just keep watching him, how far down he can go. Because I would say it's funny if it wasn't so pathetic, and if it wasn't also kind of like I see some of his journey trying to hit bottom in myself. I'm not, but for me, it was with substances, not with what he does to women.
Right. Right.
And so it's just kind of like you see it, and it's like it's funny, but it's pretty pretty awful to look at the same time because he doesn't have any self-awareness.
Let's see. Envy in the chat is asking about Liberty, which you just brought up, who I definitely want to get into. But just before I do that, I want to take a quick step back in with the deep and mention the whale. Because there's a lot of people, my wife included, very not okay with that whole whale scene. Now, to me, it's perfect, the boys, because exactly like you were mentioning with the deep, Rob, it is the deep trying to do something that he can imagine in his mind is going to be the perfect way to stop this boat. And of course, with Billy Butcher and the boys pushing everything over the top and making sure that's the most wrong choice. I understood they built actually a 50-foot long, anatomically accurate whale to shoot this whole sequence with. Obviously, I think they did CGI with the initial impact. But yeah, that's one of those that are just that's going to draw the line for a lot of people. I don't think it's quite the Negan season finale baseball bat moment, but I think it's got a pretty big impact. You guys got any quick opinions on our whole whale scene? Yeah, Billy butchered the whale with that speedboat. Yes, Biggie.
Well,
Very well.
This was a time where it really kind of felt like I was reading the book. This show is as hardcore as you guys might think it is. It is nothing compared to the book. It
I'm sure.
is very sanitized, and a lot of these characters are given a lot more depth than they do in the book. In the book, these people are the worst of the worst. You would never want to be in a room with them for a second. But this made sense to me, and they went for it. And really, they people are just mad that why did they have to do it? Well, it was important to show that again how the deep is just out of his depth. But
nice.
And that Billy Butcher will do whatever it takes. You put a whale in front of me, I don't care. He said to Huey, if you get in the way of me and my missus, I'm going to kill you. So what's he going to care about a whale that can't, that's just going to be laying there? You're just in his way. It makes sense for the characters, everything that happened in that scene. It's just, it is difficult to watch because it's an innocent CGI whale. Oh, well, practical whale in some parts, but some of it's CGI. Right. But it thought, like, does it even know what the deep wanted from him? Like there's all these little ways of thinking about it. I thought it was great. And I really like that they went for it. Really went for it. I loved Huey just being stuck inside that thing like Jonah.
All right, Don, you got some whale insights for us?
Man, that was a very messed up scene, obviously. And the deep obviously is comic relief. Every time he does something, because the funny thing is, like, I don't know if they did it specifically because Aquaman was so successful in the way that he was able to control the marine life. But remember, Aquaman for the longest time was a big joke. They had all these memes about him, and I think that they just decided, okay, we're gonna we're gonna make all of the memes about Aquaman. The Deep is gonna be that guy in real life,
Yeah.
you know. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things where he wants to do good. He wants to prove that he actually really did belong in the seven, but he's truly out of his league when it comes to this stuff because he has no idea the people who he's dealing with. And by now, I mean, like he said, he didn't see Billy Butcher and the rest of them, so he, you know, he should have been. If he would have known that was Billy Butcher and the boys, then maybe he might have expected it. But since he didn't know, he only thought it was Kimiko's brother. Until they rammed the boat, and it was like, oh man. So yeah, man. Again, the Deep is the comic relief out of this entire cast, and oh boy, it's just it is hilariously pathetic. That's the best way I can put it. It is hilariously pathetic situations he gets himself into.
Beautiful. All right. Well, while we may hope for a redemption arc, or some of us may look for a redemption arc for the Deep, one we were definitely are not going to plan on for is our newest member of the Seven, Stormfront, who starts off with the big girl power social media play. Let's put the men in their place. And by the end shows us an even darker side than we might have expected from Homelander. And that she's a freaking Nazi white supremacist, basically. So, Rob, what do you think about Stormfront?
I think just as scary as Anthony Starr is. Aya Cash, who I loved on You're the Worst, now she gets to be the actual worst.
Yeah,
is great here because they really write her in this way that makes you think, she doesn't care. She's not towing the company line. She's going to be whatever. And I'm wondering the whole time, why would they bring somebody like that in? She doesn't seem like she'd be easy to manage. She just mocks and ignores Ashley at every step of the way. She's going to say what she wants about the script of the movie and everything. And where is Homelander? I don't care. Homelander doesn't even really pay attention to her, which is to his detriment. It's going to start looking like really quickly. And then she brings up the whole Pippi Longstocking thing. So you think Pippi Longstocking is this great role model for girls. I mean, it's a classic book. It's like Anne of Green Gables. Like you think, oh, she's really something here. And even Starlight starts to, who I don't want to die, by the way, is starting to warm up to her too. And then you just all of a sudden see this just complete 180, this complete turn, and just a vicious killer underneath it all who really does not care and is just going to use that social media platform and try to and use that to up her career. And she's going to put on that smile, same as Homelander. And she knows she's got a company that's going to protect her from all the bad things she does. Mm-hmm. And now just sitting there across from him, like, I'm coming for your job. I think that as much as I want all of them to, you to die and everything, I'm enjoying her because you don't get to see a female villain like this too often who has these kind of layers to play with and these deep ways that the mask that she puts on for everyone, that nobody really saw what she did except for Kimiko. The rest of the people, they don't know how bad she is. Even the rest of the Seven don't know how bad she is yet. we're just seeing it like Homelander just sees it as a somebody in the way, somebody that's going to be vying for his spot as leader possibly. And so I think that I'm really happy that they added this character to this season. It really brings a new kind of challenge for the rest of the characters.
Well, it certainly balances if we're looking for redemption arcs, maybe through one or two, is that you have someone's like, oh no, they really are this bad. And especially, I think it was the again that the intensity of the switch, because again, plays up all nice, I don't care, whatever. But as soon as the camera's off and no one can see her, she is like actively searching out people to kill. They don't have to be in the way, they just need to be there. And I think that was it. I mean, even they do the family that's in the room, then you do the guy that's in the stairs, and they pan out, and then it's like she just takes out a whole floor. That's the next step, and then blows out this. I mean, it's really this. It works such as an amazing shocked progression. And then even if you're just like, maybe she's psycho when she drops the line of, you yellow bastard, or whatever, POS term that she used, she sucks. I think, it really was a visceral, it was a perfect choice because it was so harsh. And I think it made that visceral impact. Don, you got, do you have some thoughts on Stormfront?
Coming into the season when she's first introduced, when Homelander and Maeve are doing that promo, and then she kind of exposes like, oh, they're not even on a real army base, and she's just kind of this snarky, kind of little fucking like bratty little sister is kind of how she comes off, right? She's definitely a part of millennial culture with, I got to Instagram everything, and, she's very well media trained. She on the surface, she seems to be kind of this progressive, I guess woke feminist kind of character, right?
Sure.
And then when you get behind the curtain, the behind the scenes on her, when there is no publicity to be had, you find out she is just as much of an asshole as Homelander, and maybe even worse, because Homelander's whole thing with collateral damage was more like, okay, this thing happened because I just don't care. I'm reckless, So like when he when the terrorist shoots the pilot on the plane, and he decides he's gonna laser eye beam through it and destroys the controls to the plane, that was him being reckless.
Right.
Whereas, excuse me. Whereas Stormfront, yeah, she's chasing Kamiko and her brother, and she could have easily bypassed the family that was in that apartment, and she literally, deliberately, like she's just like, oh, okay, no, fuck it, you die. Okay, oh goddamn, screaming, because I think if the rest of the family wasn't screaming, it would just be like, okay, oh, you're here, and you're close enough to the path that I need to go through that fuck it, you're gonna die too.
Right.
If the family wouldn't have screamed, I don't know if she would have killed the rest of them. But once she heard the woman screaming, she was like, "I fuck it." They might wind up telling the truth here, so you all gotta die.
Right.
And then
you annoy me.
Yeah, and then the guy in the staircase was like, Yeah, she could have, just shoved him out the way. It was like, no, shove through the window. And then, all right, fuck it. I'm on the next floor. Blow up 2 floors. For what? Like, that wasn't her being reckless. That's just her being a sadist. You
Yeah.
know, um, and it was just one of those things where, like, when you thought that, like, Homelander's threat is a lot more personal, right? Homelander's threat is more of, if he's in your personal space, there is a possibility that him being there is the threat. Like, the fact that I'm talking to you means, like, that is a threat on your life. Whereas her is just like, ah, you know what? Seems like it's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. You
Time for
know,
murdering.
yeah, and that's the difference where, like, yeah, Homelander is obviously, you know, Homelander is obviously a jerk, but she takes it to a brand new level because, you know, where Homelander, it seems like he's doing things because he's trying to maintain a certain veneer. It's like she's just doing it because, like, fuck it, I got nothing better to do right now. You
Right.
know, yeah, I got nothing better to do, and you're here, so you should die.
It does. It makes it a bit more of a sort of an active evil because I think you hit it personally. I think you hit it perfectly. For Homelander, you might be concerned of collateral damage if you're in the area, if you've personally threatened. For her, she actively searches higher collateral damage. What more destruction can I cause around?
Yeah,
Now,
and they gave her the right name.
yeah.
You
Now
know,
she is brought in by Stan Edgar. He's the one that sort of brings her in. So I think there might be some connection there or control. Interesting if she's sort of a white supremacist and he being more of a gentleman of color. Again, interesting dynamic. I'm curious where they're going to go with this. This is a long way to loop around the small little bit of hint we get forward that you mentioned about from Mallory, which was Liberty. Character briefly mentioned, to be perfectly honest, the moment Mallory mentioned Liberty, I thought Mallory was going to be killed because that was going to be the bit of information that she dropped before being disappeared. Still alive by end of episode 3, at least. But yeah, Liberty, apparently an old hero character who some of this stuff, either V or what's going on with Vought, is tied into. Do we think that Stormfront has a connection with Liberty? Could Liberty have been a former persona of Stormfront? We don't really know a whole lot about her as a character. What did you guys feel when you heard the Liberty thing? Did you just like, oh, this is foreshadowing something, or did your brain start going somewhere and coming up with connections?
Not so much connections, more like I think that it's somebody that's got information.
Okay, so just somebody that we're going to be meeting on later on may not necessarily have a whole big connection. All right, Don, did you have any thoughts when Liberty was brought up with us?
you know what? I think Liberty could possibly be an older persona of Stormfront. Like, maybe she used to be Liberty. They put her on ice, and then wiped her memory and brought her back as
Right.
Stormfront. I mean, well, but for one, we need to know what Liberty's power set was, because that'll also be a big clue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if Liberty is said to have some sort of weather manipulation, or at the very least can call down lightning, then that will be obviously the smoking gun, right? Uh, but as it stands thus far, I mean, well, also too, you got to think about it like this. Uh, if she had been around and maybe she was, like a test subject from before, it could be from an older version of Compound V
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't yet stable. So maybe she had certain powers before, and it wasn't until they made the newer version of Compound V where she got these powers, and now these powers are permanent.
Right.
So obviously, because she had, like, just from the shot that we saw, she has the same kind of build as Stormfront, you know, and they're not going to throw something in there like that for nothing.
Yeah, no, it's
So,
definitely a significant no.
so it's either she used to be Liberty, or she has some sort of connection where maybe Liberty is someone who can stop her, and maybe that's what a thing that it could be as well, is like the boys have to find Liberty because maybe Liberty is the only one that can possibly stop Stormfront.
Mm-hmm.
A parent.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be Karen
yeah.
as well. Yeah,
That's possible. Yeah, because we don't have a time frame of when Liberty was. Is she a modern hero? Is she an older hero? They obviously give us the history of pre-Nazi. We have Vought experimenting with stuff, and so by the 50s and Project Paperclip, effectively, you have Vought developing these soup serums. So at least the past 50 plus years, we've had the potential of soups being presented by Vought. So yeah, what time period is she in? Has she been modified? I like the idea of her possibly being affected by different versions of Compound V. That might have altered things. But yeah, I think we all agree some probable connection. Uh, uh, but yeah, whenever they just drop a name like that, it's going to be something. It's something important to pay attention to. All right. Real quick, any particular small notes or things that you really liked uh, about this trio of episodes? I'll kick this one off. One thing I love Billy's note on Becca's location. The minute he pulled that out, I understood that this was like the first impressions he had. Jot it down, and that he's obsessed over it. It's one of those small little details I think was just told so much about both Billy and his mindset and everything else. Um, they do amazing stuff with their color and shots. All of the stuff between Kamiko and her brother. When I first watched this, I watched it in my bedroom, which doesn't have um, closed caption enabled. So the whole first discussion between the two of them, with him speaking in Vietnamese Thai. I'm sorry, I can't remember where they're from originally. The characters are from. Uh, but basically, when he's speaking their native language and she is signing, I didn't get any translations on that, but I totally understood the context of what was being told. And I rewatched it later on, and yeah, you totally feel the story and the back and forth and the questioning and his commitment to stuff. And I think was done amazingly well. Um, they did another shot like that with when Billy's on the phone with Mallory, and she asked, is the sister going to be a problem? He's like, if it does, I'll take care of it. And he turns around and Frenchie's right there, and the whole rest of that back and forth scene is just, again, it's beautiful because so little has to be said. And then even Mother's Milk walking through there, and a lot of that back, it was just, there was a lot of those scenes where they had the characters expressing and telling a lot of story with very minimal dialogue, which I thought the show does really well. um, and then finally, the last shot of episode 3 with Kamiko, the most graphic novel anime shot and she pulls it off. The actress playing Kimiko is perfect with the tousled hair and the way they've got the color. It was like, that's an anime shot right there. I have seen that growing up in countless animes of the hero like, and this person is now going to die. Um, I thought was just beautifully done. So I mean, there were so many of these little shot choices. I thought that really I thought did amazingly well. Anything that kind of stands out for you guys, Don? Let's start with you.
I mean, well, the one thing that stands out for me is how they're able to keep throwing in surprises. You know, there is no predictability with this. There's never been a scene where I'm like, okay, I absolutely know what's going to happen here. Like, for example, when they're in the tunnels, and Huey sees Starlight, and he's like, oh, wow. And then her eyes light up and she blasts him. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but then it's like when Homelander comes out, it's like, oh, I got it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it's one of those things where they hit you with surprises, and it's never a thing of like. Not only did I not, it was unexpected, but it's like, oh, how could you do that? It's like, no, they set up things that logically play out where it's like a character does something unexpected, and then when you see the why, it's like, okay, that makes perfect sense as to why they would do that.
Mm-hmm.
They've set up a number of redemptive arcs, but at the same point, they've also set up some more villain arcs. Where now Homelander uh, is even they've raised the stakes on Homelander, where he's even more of a villain. They brought in Stormfront, who like they're going to be kind of vying back and forth to see who's going to be the bigger villain. And then you got the people behind the scenes, namely Steve Edgar, who's kind of like, well, no, I'm the puppet master behind all of this, but at the same point, he also keeps his hands very, very clean.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one of those things where they still have us in the world that they set up in season one, and I love all of the little kind of pot shots they take at the MCU and also DCEU, like the Dawn of the Seven.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my god, that was absolutely hilarious. Hans Zimmer.
I know that was perfect. Oh god, I was laughing my ass off on that one.
you know, uh, yeah, and just the fact that thus far they have found creative ways, I think, of keeping the audience engaged and not making it predictable or boring. So that is what I'm loving about this season thus far, and I hope that they're able to maintain the level of storytelling that they've accomplished with these first three episodes.
Excellent. Excellent. What about you, Rob? Any particular standout moments for you?
There's lots of standout moments, but mostly what I like and what I liked about the book and what I like about what they did in the first season and carrying over is just the parody and the satire of our world and celebrity worship and celebrity culture and how the media covers it, and the look at how corporations do things, and kind of this real look that there's got to be some people that watch this and twitch in their seats because they're like they're putting a mirror up to how things are done and
Yeah.
letting the audience know this is how things are done. This isn't a joke. These aren't like exaggerations. they're just taking what we already have with sports and entertainment and everything else and just putting it with superheroes and politics and religion and everything else. And it's the same group, that did Preacher, and it's the same author who did Preacher. And so I'm just kind of shocked that we get a show like this that is able to, like I said, I'm drained mentally by a lot of what's going on in our real world. And so I'm really happy that we have a show that's not going to let these kind of things go in this time when we really need it. Not to laugh really necessarily yet, but to really make us look at how things are, and that maybe some people will, be moved to do things a little differently. Probably not, but we can hope that there's a little shame in some people. As far as like standout moments goes, everything that I'm my favorite character on the show is Frenchie.
I love Frenchie.
And I love that he's just this guy that nobody knows. They don't know who he is. They put everybody else's names up there. They don't know who he is. And he's a guy that wants to get the soups. He wants to help Kimiko out. For all the shady stuff that he's into, he feels
one
like
of the purest hearts.
Yeah, I mean, him and Mother's Milk are two guys who just, one wants to go back to his family, but still will not just leave. And then you got Frenchie, who also he just wants to survive, but he wants to help, and I love all those moments between the team.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, yes, we've got Huey and Billy combating at each other, but those two guys don't get enough credit. We haven't really talked about the team, and I just dig it. I mean, even Frenchie coming in to help her, talk to her brother, and bringing in the Doritos and the Red Bull, and still trying to find ways to communicate with her. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it goes beyond any kind of love. He just he wants to crack the code of this woman to help her, not and it just. I really dig all those little moments. There's tons of big moments out there, but I really like paying attention to the quieter moments. Even with Billy, where he finally had to tell them why he's being the way he is. And he's like, fine, okay, no more BS. My wife's not dead. They're finding ways to humanize this guy. Because in the book, again, there ain't much. Billy Butcher, he's Garth Ennis's favorite character he's ever created, and he is an unbelievable character in the books. But in here, he's more of they've given him this kind of depth that I really, really dig, because he could just be a caricature, but he's not. He's you can see that it's an armor, it's a shell that he puts on. And I don't know. Those are all the things that I'm really taking away from this so far.
Yeah, well, and I think that those were kind of great moments too, because it really shows that the team itself gels so much better when that honesty is there. It's like when there's the posing and the pushing and the who's what and who's in charge and whatever, they're not syncing. But the moment he kind of collapses in that honest, this is what's going on, it's like, finally, if you guys just communicated like that, you would all be on the same page all the time. Well, okay, since you hit us with the points that you did like, were there any things that didn't resonate with you as well, or kind of stand out as next time, let's not see any more of this? Anything in particular, Rob?
I mean, when they started singing.
Yes, thank you. See, singing is right. No, stop with the singing. No more singing.
I love the music they use in these episodes, but the singing was just really, really too much, just too far to me. I was taken out of it. I was really taken out of it, both a couple of times that they did it. Other than that, I not really. The whole, whenever they talk about the movie making part of it and everything, I kind of tune out a little bit too. I don't care about them, the guys that's so excited about pitching the movies to them. I've seen that done like a million times on a million different shows, and so that's that one part I don't really care for. They're that hero worship, that the sycophantic part of it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. All right, all right. Don, anything that wasn't working too right for you?
I
All
mean,
right
it's
to have.
funny. No, it's funny that Rob brings up the scene. I mean, well, because for me, like I said, it reminds me of like I remember when I was a kid. I might have been like maybe 6, 5 or 6, and my mom sent me to visit someone in Boston, and I wound up going to like a Bible camp. Like, and I just remember, like, I'll never forget, like, that's just what, like, the singing at, like, and like the thing from season one, reminded me of, and I'm just like, man, I was never digging that when I was a kid, uh, and I kind of like the fact that they parody it here, because I'm like, yes, yes, you look like fools, and I'm and I'm glad that yeah, I mean, not mocking anyone's religious thing, but like the theatrics. I'm not big
Oh
on
yeah, it's so over the top again. Big
yeah.
singing, total costumes, empty glass casket with just a floating costume with them. Yeah, I mean everything about that scene was.
Um, let's see if there's anything that I would say that I had an issue with. Like I said, the only thing for me was the opening. Uh, the fact that they didn't start off with with the left. Like I wish we could have gotten like the reasoning behind Homelander deciding to drop off Billy Butcher wherever the hell it was that he took him. Like I wish we would have gotten that thing. So that's my only complaint is that I mean, maybe they'll bring that up later when
Yeah.
these guys actually have another confrontation. But yeah, that to me is the one kind of hanging thread that it's like, okay, you took him there obviously to taunt him, but the fact that his wife was alive and she's raising your kid. Now, why didn't you after that decide to either kill him or whatever? Like, what was the reason behind just dumping him in that parking lot, wherever the hell it was that he dumped him?
Well, remember when they killed Translucent? It was at a Tony Cicero's.
Yes, that part I remember because I just watched it again, and yeah, you got Huey punching the damn sign, till his hands get bloody. But yeah, it was like Homelander doesn't like anyone for the most part. So it's like, why keep Billy Butcher alive? Like, what use? Because especially if Becca isn't going anywhere, Becca is trapped in her sanitized prison. So what is the point of keeping Billy Butcher alive, especially now that he knows the truth? Like
Well, it
he
could be simply just to keep Becca from going after him. I mean, if he kills Billy right there, that she'd be like, "Well, you're never coming around, and I'm gonna," But maybe that might have been part of Homelander's deal with, "I'll leave your husband alive, and you let me come see my kid."
They actually say that.
Yeah,
That's actually in there. He says he's out there free as a bird. We made a deal. And it was kind of a real quick line that they threw out there, but he was between him and Becca and Homelander, and he's like, "Look, I didn't, he's fine, he's free, but we had a deal. That was part of our deal. Was I'm not killing him." Now, why does he honor it? Those are the things that I actually ask: is why does Homelander agree to anything
yeah.
when he holds all the cards in his head? Is it just him? Is it him as a god giving something back to the little people
I, I
because he
almost
can.
I almost think it's that, because at the end of last season, when he has that whole encounter with Billy at Stillwell's house, he seems to not even like blame him. Like, I was wondering why you're coming after me, but it's like you you've been manipulated into thinking this whole thing has happened when it hasn't. So yeah, it's almost like that God petulant, like, oh, you're just confused. Oh, I can kind of understand that. Yeah, is that him attempting to be, understanding or whatever? I don't know. There's definitely an arrogance attached to it, I think, from one standpoint or another. Um, yeah. Well, that's a good point. Um, yeah, I didn't like the singing. I actually will, even though again it was funny, and I sing a lot, especially a lot of parody songs all the time, and annoys my daughter. I can't stand it on shows. Not when they do too much, and only because it seems like you're putting in filler. If you're going to have a 10-minute scene of this singing, and then you're going to have another big old scene of Patton Oswalt Gills singing, and then you're going to start the first episodes and close them out with unnecessarily long chunks of Billy Joel. And look, I don't have a problem with Billy Joel. I like that song. Almost Human, making mistakes. It's a perfect thematic moment for Huey. For kind of a lot of people in this show of moving past and going on in the song. It plays very much, but you don't need to show us whole chunks of the music video to open up things. It just feels like you're filling up time. And I think that's where I get against the singing. It isn't that you're doing something funny or you're referencing, was it Westworld used a lot of current songs, but they twisted them a little and they played them kind of the old style and they made them like we're integrating with the world. There was something interesting done with them. So I think that's what bothers me on that. Yeah, the only other little thing that got me is just a few little like manufactured points, like the police helicopter showing up over the boat. Why did they keep leave? You've got a soup tied up in the galley. Why do you keep leaving him alone? And then leaving things. It's like the minute they left him alone, I'm like, oh, he's going to escape so they could cause a problem. Oh, that's why the helicopter shows up so they could just do this. There were a few moments that felt like you're putting them in here to push the story, but not because they really make sense. But again, tiny criticisms. I'm nitpicking here, except for the singing part. But everything else, I'm nitpicking on. Yeah, I was annoyed by the Huey Billy kind of mushroom stamping back and forth. But I like that they wrapped it up by the end of the third episode, so that we can move forward. I like Billy stepping out and facing Homelander down and kind of letting know Huey that he'd risk it to save his life. And, I like that. I like where they went with it. I just didn't like the action of it going. But yeah, for 3 episodes dropping off a new season, I think I think we got a home run here, personally.
Oh yeah. Listen, to start off a season, especially catching people up with things from the past season, introducing new dynamics, and pushing the story forward. I think that they so far have done a great job. And it's funny because like the boys is kind of along the same vein as Wanted, the comic book Wanted, and I'm like seeing this show and then thinking about what they did to the movie version of Wanted. I'm like, oh man, somebody dropped the ball big time. No, don't get me wrong. James McAvoy, Angelina Jolie, and Morgan Freeman did a great job in the roles they were given. But reading the comic book version of Wanted and then seeing what they did on screen, I know Rob, you're saying that that the boys is kind of a sanitized version of from what they did in the comic book. but this is still I think this is probably still a hell of a lot closer to the comic book than the adaptation that they did have wanted.
Oh, sure. I mean, even The Walking Dead had things that they just couldn't do or wouldn't do and replace things out. I mean, Preacher is the same way. The Preacher book is bananas. The show's bananas already, but the books, they can't, they got to give some level of humanity to some of these characters that you don't always get in the books. Books are more, to me, are a lot more black and white than the shows need to be. There needs to be gray area in some of this because you're going to lose a lot of audience. You want to get everybody in, not just give just to the fans. As much as I would love to just have it just for me, I know I can't. I mean, there's a bulldog in the comic book that Billy owns, and I would love for that bulldog to be here, but it would just be another thing, and it would, cost more and blah blah blah. So, and there's a lot of weird stuff that happens with that dog, and so you just can't always do. You can't always do just everything that you want to do, and it is more a little sanitized, but it's definitely the show gives you something that the book doesn't, which is a lot more to think about.
Yeah.
The book is pretty straightforward, very much like a Punisher book. Like you're either with Frank or you're against him, and when you're reading a Punisher book, you know what I mean? It's like you're not supposed to really think about the good and the bad of it. Just Punisher's going to do something. And in a book or a series like this, you have to have more points than just the one protagonist. You got to have all these things so that you're making a show with a huge ensemble cast. And anyway, I could keep talking forever, but
all right. Well, we are at, but I was assuming we do an hour and a half for about an hour and 40 minutes, a little longer now. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Next week, we'll just have a single episode to talk about. So we'll probably be able to dive in a little bit more. But I think you're right. I think we'll spend a little bit more time talking about the boys themselves. Mother's Milk, Frenchie, who we didn't really get into a whole lot of their stuff this week. But hey, 3 episodes to talk about. That's a lot of stuff to get into. But so, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and leave it here. Oh, one last little note from Biggie here in the chat. Homelander's line. Hey, William, guess where I had pancakes this morning? God, the guy's such a douchebag. Really is a douchebag.
He does a little thing with his tongue when he says they were delicious.
It's just up there. All right.
Well, I wish somebody be able to use the line back at Homelander, because you've got a character named Mother's Milk, and Homelander drinks Mother's Milk.
Oh. Yeah, you're right. They've got to find something. They got to find something there. All right. Rob, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find me on my channel, Smirking Gun Reviews, where we're reviewing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. past seasons. We are doing Raised by Wolves. We're doing The Boys every week. We're going to be starting Agent Carter, probably just waiting on somebody else to get caught up in they're in the process of finding a way to watch Agent Carter. You can find me on Twitter at reviews_gun and on Twitch at Smirking Gun Plays, all one word. We are going back and forth between Red Dead Redemption 2 and what the hell else? Oh, and The Outer Worlds.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Saw you posting that up. That looked really good. All right, Don, where can people find you?
All right. So yeah, I keep on saying we're gonna do some Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire content, and I've been stuck because I don't know if I had told you guys before. I made a new intro. I loved it, and then I found out that another channel with like 10 trillion more subscribers than me basically had the same damn intro, and now I've been stuck because I've made like 10 intros and can't figure out what to use. So, yeah, man, look, Yeah, I just want to put it out there. Look, sorry to everyone who's been waiting on a video, but you can't catch me here with Darren and Rob talking about the boys and also Mandalorian, and Agents of Shield, and Agent Carter, and whatever else we get up to. So yeah, that's where you can find me for right now.
You can
One
find
last
Don.
thing. One last thing. Raina just put it up in the comment section. I'm also doing Lovecraft Country on Sundays. Brilliant show. Brilliant
Oh, yeah,
show.
last
If you're not watching
episode-
Lovecraft Country, you got to watch it.
Last episode of Lovecraft was like an RPG event module come to life. It was awesome. Really fun show. Excellent. You can, of course, I'm D. You can find me here. It's my channel here at D's Reviews. Right now, we are just going to be doing Fans of the Boys. This, of course, our premiere episode. We got 5 more coming up as the next 5 episodes drop. Then next month, you will be able to find my singular review of the finale of The Walking Dead Season 10. And then we'll probably come up and do another little chat here with Rob on that after that. Then end of October, we have the Fandalorians. That's us. It's like us with masks on.
I'm getting a mask, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fine, we'll have to go into.
We're inspiring each other. That drops at the end of October. So that's going to then run in through the length of that well into December. And then in November, we will be jumping back into Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. with our big season reviews. We're going to start off with season 1, beginning of November. Please stay tuned. We'll let you know when that is going to drop. But for now, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Rena and Biggie and Envy and everyone else who joined us live in the chat. We'll see the rest of you in the archives, and hopefully we'll catch you all next week right here. So thanks as always. I'm D, and we're out of here. Catch you guys next time.
R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever! See you guys. Oh, they make me hit 2 buttons here.